T.O., Kentucky, they've lost 4 out of 5. And last night, 98-84 loss at Ole Miss. No shame in losing at Ole Miss, but there is quite a bit of shame in losing at Ole Miss the way they lost at Ole Miss after they got beat up at home by Arkansas. They gave up 89 points at home to Arkansas, who was not known as the greatest offensive team in the world. And then, look, last night's what they did defensively last night was embarrassing. Ole Miss got whatever they wanted, whenever they wanted it, and it was. Let me put it like this: Kentucky shot 52% from the floor. They were 10 for 21 from 3, and they only turned the ball over 8 times. And they were down by as many as 25 points in the second half and needed a miracle run just to get it within 11 with 3 minutes left. You called this early, T.O. You had your doubts about Kentucky early on. Is this – I know that they weren't – they were without Lamont Butler, and Andrew Carr still looks like his back is bothering him. But is this fixable? Like, can they get this thing turned around? They got South Carolina coming in on Saturday, I believe it is. South Carolina coming in on Saturday, then you get Tennessee at home on February 11th, a game that I'm going to be at. Can they get this thing turned around for when I get down to Lexington?
They got to get healthy, guys. Point guard, we talk point guard all the time. And by the way, I know you guys already know this, but you all hit a home run with Mike LaTulip. Like, that dude is a stud. Like, his breakdown of what Kentucky is without a point guard was like elite. I'm sitting there listening to it. I'm like, that's a great point. Yep, that's also an awesome point. Love that too. And it's like, holy shit. Like, this guy is on top of it. An absolute homer. Mike LaTulip, old T.O.'s a fan. I think you do a great job. I think he's awesome. You guys, I'm serious about that. He's done a really good job. But
He
kind of like their inability to settle things down. Like when things get awry and hectic, sometimes your best defense is how you play your offense. And the fact that they can't slow anything down.
Explain what you mean by that.
Yeah.
Well, because if you can control the tempo on offense and you have a point guard that'll right the ship and settle everybody down, you don't have to score, but you have to get a good shot. Like, that's where you really miss that's where you really miss guys like Lamont Butler, where you even the ever roller coaster guy and Kirk Creasat, at least you can get somebody up there and initiate offense. You can set a ball screen, get something going. They don't have that guy if those two guys are missing. And like, if you're playing Travis Perry and Trent Noah double-digit minutes, they're still young, and this is a grown-ass man SEC. Like, that is a difficult position for those two young men to be in, and they're not ready yet. And that's okay. Guys, it's okay not to be ready as a freshman. It's okay. But you play both those guys double-digit minutes. That's tough. You got to have your point guards back. Point guards, plural. That makes it so hard. Like, you get there's a big difference. You know, there's guys that can bring the ball up the floor, and then there's a point guard. Like, the big difference. And sometimes you need a good shot just to settle the troops so you can get back and you can play five men in front of that defense or in front of the opposing offense. Like, they just don't have it, especially with both of those guys. I think they're going to be fine. I think you're going to get both of those guys back eventually, and everybody can take a deep breath.
I think Lamont Butler is going to come back. I don't know. I'm a little more worried about the Kirk Creasat situation and how that's kind of playing out. Yeah. I haven't heard much on that recently.
He's right underneath that 1/3 games threshold that they usually do all that stuff with. So we'll see. But Lamont not being there, that's huge. Mm-hmm. Huge.
Mm-hmm. Fana, you guys talked about it last night. The thing that stood out to me, Ansley Almanor. You guys remember Mark Titus back in the day? He would like Club Trillion, where he started.
Yeah, he had a 13 trilly.
Yeah. Ansley Almanor had a 15 trilly. Trent Noah had a 13 trilly.
Yeah, they had 2 trillies. Has there ever been a multiple trilly guy? Like a multiple trilly game for some of these guys?
I've never
for
seen
guys
it.
that played more than 5 minutes. We can't. It can't happen.
They
didn't foul somebody?
Yeah, no, nothing, not a single stat in 15 minutes.
We call that a Tony Snell. Like,
Tony
that's crazy.
Side note, the best ever fantasy basketball team name I ever had was I called one team, "You used to Tony on my Snell phone." That's pretty proud of that one. Fanta, what do you make of Big Blue?
Well, when you don't have a head in the snake on the perimeter, it's difficult to set a tone, to have a semblance of a rhythm defensively. They also don't have a communicator. So as much as Amari Williams is a gifted player and last night had a triple-double, he's quiet by nature. He's just quiet. He was at Drexel. He's a very talented player. But I don't know if they have that guy that gives them an edge, especially without Lamont there. But even with Butler on the floor, like, let's not forget, it's not like they were otherworldly defensively with him out there. I think for me, what we're watching is a team that early in the season had veteran players who knew what their skill sets were, players, a lot of depth as well. So they were ahead of a lot of teams early in the season, Duke being one of them. Several others, when you look at their marquee wins, I don't want to say they were ahead of Gonzaga. I think they just had an incredible comeback and won that basketball game. But I think that when you look at this Kentucky team, they were ahead of a lot of teams in November and December. But now that February's rolled around, other teams have caught up, evolved, figured out some things that they can do against a team that truthfully, like, they have not gotten better as the season's gone on. They're kind of what they are. And defensively, especially, it's an issue. I mean, you could score all you want, and I think that's what we thought was refreshing. Like, early in the season, T.O., you know this well, like, a lot of teams are still trying to figure out their offensive identity. Kentucky had theirs quickly.
Absolutely. We got crushed for saying that too. Like, hey, right. Kentucky's much closer to what they're going to be than, like, remember when they beat Duke and everybody was like, oh, this is great. Sorry, go ahead, John. But like that's the point we tried to make.
The question is, can this be salvaged? The answer is yes. It still can be salvaged. The season's a marathon. That group's got to have 2 days of practice, like John Henson said. Take the rims out. Just dig in.
That was a great story.
It was great. John Henson told the story on After Dark that when they had a terrible defensive performance, they showed up to practice the next day, and Roy had removed the baskets from the gym.
Yeah, that's brutal. That's brutal. That you can just tell it's going to be one of those days. That, and when they bring the bubble, I don't know if you guys know what the bubble is. When they throw the bubble on top of the rim and you can't make shots at all. They had to do that a couple of times for practice whenever Marquise Reed transferred over to Clemson, because he was just killing everybody. So they had to put the bubble on top so he couldn't make any more shots. That's when you know it's going to be a tough day.
Yep. The only point I'll make here about Kentucky, this is the SEC, right?
Yeah.
They lost to Alabama. They lost at Vanderbilt. Arkansas won. Is a little concerning, and then they lost at Ole Miss. Like, it is what it is, man. You lose 4 out of 5 in this league, it's going to happen. You're not healthy. You need a point guard. You got South Carolina at home, Tennessee at home, at Texas, Vanderbilt at home. Like, that is probably the softest 4-game run that you're going to find in the SEC for any team this season. I think that they'll find a way to be able to figure this thing out.